But Nomi, I'm glad you're here because
you,
this is a bit of a celebration. Because according to Donald Trump, we have prevailed. Now, prevailed as in past tense. We're not attempting to prevail. We have prevailed. It's over. It's over. Mm-hmm. We've won. Mission accomplished is another way to say that. Here is Donald Trump writing one of Joe Biden's campaign ads.
Right, exactly.
This is number one.
And we have saved, and if you look at on a per 100,000 basis, we're at the best part of the pack, right on the bottom. Germany and us are leading the world. Germany and the United States are leading the world. Lives saved per 100,000. In every generation, through every challenge and hardship and danger, America has risen to the task. We have met the moment, and we have prevailed. Americans do whatever it takes to find solutions, pioneer breakthroughs, and harness the energies we need to achieve a total victory. Day after day, we're making tremendous strides with the dedication of our doctors and nurses. These are incredible people.
So inspiring. So inspiring.
Mission accomplished.
Awestruck. Mission accomplished. Now, of course, rate of infection going down in Germany, rate of infection going up in this country.
Right.
And so a little bit premature. I mean, this is what they call
more people. Like,
right.
We have more people that are saved as a result. There are more people without the infection because we have more people.
And there are more people that don't have the infection, but even on a per capita basis, we're heading in the wrong direction. This is the classic case of spiking the football on the, I would say, you know, sometimes you hear people say like, oh, you're spiking the football on like the 10-yard line or the 5-yard line, or I think we're close to like the 40-yard line. And it's, if there's any argument about that, it's just like, are we on the opposing team's 40-yard line or our own 40-yard line where Donald Trump is spiking the ball?
Well, he's just doing whatever he can to keep the economy. I mean, the whole argument that Republicans are making, obviously they want to make money, right? But they also want to win the election. And if that unemployment rate continues to rise towards, you know, what it is right now, at the rate it's going to be undeniable that you could walk Joe Biden into this election as a corpse, basically, and he would win against Trump. So I think that's ultimately what this is about is,
without a doubt,
he can't be the wartime president because it's not working.
Well, the problem is that they have, and they don't seem to sort of like, they can't wrap their heads around this, is that they cannot stop the virus.
Right.
They cannot convince people it is safe to go back to a whole range of activities that would constitute a normally functioning economy.
Right.
And so, you know, what he needs to be doing is, I think, the opposite of what he's doing, frankly. I mean, from just a sheer political standpoint, which is to increase the sense of risk that there is and make it like he's protecting everybody. But I think to a certain extent, he may be jammed up. I have no idea what where he is on this, but I find it hard to believe that if he didn't think it was possible to, that if he thought it was possible to have like C-130s drop cash on everybody just so that people felt flush,
right,
that he wouldn't do it. That, like, I think he would do it. Like, I don't think he has any sort of like,
as long as his name was on it.
Yes, exactly. They would come in like a big, and
gold
they have
envelope.
to be like
a Trump gold envelope.
Trump gold envelope, and maybe like one of those like streamers behind the airplane, brought to you by Donald Trump.
Oh my God.
So then after his really inspiring, uplifting speech about how we've prevailed and how the American spirit has raised us above this crisis and presumably it's behind us, somebody at the White House press conference or Rose Garden or whatever it is said, what are you talking about? And this is what he said.
Mr. President, you said in your comments earlier, we have met.
Pause it for 1 second. If that's not an image of how we have prevailed and we're past this, I don't know what is. Everybody's like, 8 feet away from each other in masks, but continue.
Mr. President, you said in your comments earlier, we have met the moment, we have prevailed. To you, sir, is the mission accomplished, even with 1.4
No,
million?
we prevailed on testing is what I'm referring to. That was with regard to testing. You never prevail when you have 90,000 people, 100,000 people, when you have 80,000 people as of today, when you have the kind of death you're talking about, when you have potentially millions of people throughout the world that are dying. That's not prevail. What I'm talking about is we have a great testing capacity now. It's getting even better. There's nobody close to us in the world, and we certainly have done a great job on testing. And testing is a very big, important function. By the way, some people consider it more important than others, to be honest with you. But testing certainly is a very important function, and we have prevailed. We have the best equipment anywhere in the world. Okay, please. Yeah.
Yeah, we have the best equipment. Let's put up a graph on how we have the best testing. We have the best testing, except for if you measure it on a per capita basis. And if you measure it on a per capita basis, in fact, we don't. We don't have
consistent units. It says this is
right. We don't, and not only do we not have it on a per capita basis, we were so late in the process that it became largely, in many respects, irrelevant. Although now, it would be nice to have that type of testing regime now. We're about to get completely snowed by China, who are about to embark on a testing of 11 million people in 10 days. So, in fact, we have not prevailed. It's also like, does he think that people don't speak English?
Yes, he does. And the reality is I actually think that our Democratic governors who are supposedly standing up to Trump, and the mayors, they're buying this bullshit. They're actually kind of falling for it to an extent. I mean, look what they're doing in New York right now. They're about to open. De Blasio's like, we're going to open up in June. Why? Literally, why? There's still no action. No. Dr. Fauci's not saying this. If you're going to use him as the moral compass. So what the hell is going on behind the scenes? There's the subtext of what's happening politically in terms of do people speak English? No, they don't. Not even the smart politicians speak English. If we're just going to break it down very simply.
I will say this, that about a month ago, my prediction was that you would start to see these states opening up by mid-May. It happened a little bit earlier than I anticipated. And what they're going to do in New York and these other sort of packed states, Northeast packed states, is you're going to wait. And they're going to say, we're going to open up in June, because what they want to do is wait. Because by early June, we should see the results of this. And it's going to make it a lot easier from a political standpoint for them to say, okay, we can't open up in the way that we wanted to because we've just seen what happened in Georgia, or we've just seen what happened in this place. And I suspect that's going to be the case. There's a lot more antibody testing going around in New York State. But the problem is nobody's quite sure if these tests are reliable, because there's been no sort of central clearinghouse, and they've just sort of thrown them out, out into the wild, essentially.
Yeah.
And they're waiting for anecdotal evidence as to, how these tests are doing, because they're so far behind. They just want to get numbers on the board so that Donald Trump can get up there and say, we prevailed.
But
and
meanwhile,
here's the
the messaging game that's happening is confusing. Like you said, who understands English? Well, there are people who are going to be cautious no matter what, and there are even New Yorkers who are just tired. They have quarantine, itis, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Where they just need to get out, and so every conversation about opening it up, it gets into your psyche. I mean, I'm even falling for it. I'm like, I'm going to go take a drive. That was me yesterday. I didn't go anywhere. I just took a drive because I was losing my mind.
Yeah.
So if even the people who are paying attention start to little habit by habit, break apart their routine, that ultimately is what's going to affect us all. I mean, whether it's conscious or not.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there needs to be, I mean, the problem is we don't have these like broad principles that we need to be following that are being presented by any type of like authority.
Right.
And we don't have the institutional and sort of structural support that we need to expand on those parameters.
Right.
And it's, yeah, I don't know. I mean, we'll see what happens over the next month or two. It's, it's possible that because it's summer, not so much, I think, from a heat perspective, but in terms of like close proximity and closed in perspective, that the rate of infection will drop. But as people start to go inside more, or I don't know, I think we're maybe about to find out how central air conditioning plays a role in some of this stuff. I don't know.
So
I don't.
Can I bring up an interesting point that my best friend lives in Switzerland, and she's American. She works for an NGO, and they do a lot of international research. And she goes to vulnerable countries and does messaging. Like, she helps set up radio stations or whatever. But because of that, she has all this information from like the UN, and they're studying COVID country by country by country. And like what's really fascinating is looking at the Southern European countries and how countries like Italy are ravaged, Spain are ravaged, but then Portugal has like I think it's like under 100 cases. And in Greece, I'm Greek, so I'm very familiar with the Greek people. They've handled it very well. I mean, even if the numbers are not being reported, well, it's still not anywhere near. And so they're trying to understand, is it the cause? Is it because of government structures? Is it because one's more authoritarian than another, or there's an authoritarian psyche? And so much of it right now, in its early stages of research, really comes down to how the people are psychologically taking in COVID. So a red state, a libertarian state versus, California. I mean, America is just a completely different scenario. But what they found was similar between Portugal and Greece. I would love to see the research behind this. Is there's like this culture of hypochondria. And I'm like, oh, that makes so much sense, because I can't understand why Greeks would, we're so argumentative, why we would stay inside. But there's something in like our familial structure. And then there's like skeptics. So I'm saying this because you look at someone like Donald Trump, who's putting out ideas, like testing them, and it's creating doubt. I mean, this is ultimately, I really think so much of this is a psychological game. And how do we win an election? How do we make sure that just enough businesses stay open and people are still contributing to those businesses, those who can afford it? And oftentimes, you look at like the wealthier white male, like there's a portion of the population that aligns with, the ones who are not following these guidelines and who want the economy to stay open also have like a little bit more money. And, there's something happening, and I would love to see like the research behind it, 10 years from now when we look back. But I think ultimately it comes down to like psychological, political messaging here, and it's very scary.
And I think what Trump is also trying to do is trying to shift the blame for this onto that. And by this, I mean having to stay in. He wants that to be a socially constructed thing. Right. So that there can be an individual or an entity behind it. So it's blame China. So it's blame Democratic governors, et cetera, et cetera.